So let me ask you something. If you're training consistently, you're putting in the hours, you're doing the work, but your legs feel heavy more often than they should, your performance is flattened out, or you just keep picking up the same nagging injuries over and over and over again, what's your first instinct? Well, most athletes I talk to either assume they need more rest or they just need to push harder, thinking they need to build up more fitness. Now, I get it, these feel like logical responses, of course, but in most cases, neither one of them actually solves the problem. Because the problem usually isn't the training, it's what's happening, or more accurately, what's not happening after the training. Hey, I'm Dr. Jason Barker. I've been working with endurance athletes for over 20 years, and I'm a two-time Ironman finisher myself. So when I talk about recovery, I'm talking about it from both sides. What I see clinically and what I've experienced firsthand as an athlete trying to balance hard training with the rest of my life. Here's the thing I want you to understand about recovery before we get into the specifics. It's not a passive process. Now, it's not just the absence of training. Recovery is really an active, physiologically demanding process that your body has to execute after every single session, and it requires the right inputs to do it properly, especially as masters athletes. Now, when those inputs aren't there, the process breaks down. And when recovery breaks down consistently, performance eventually follows. So let's walk through what actually has to happen. So the first thing your body has to do is repair the tissue, of course. So every workout creates damage, right? That's not a bad thing. It's the whole point of working out. Now, micro tears in muscle fibers, stress on connective tissue, and in endurance athletes specifically, significant stress on the gut lining, especially during long efforts in the heat. Now, your body has to rebuild all of that, and it needs specific raw materials to do it. Amino acids, collagen precursors, vitamin C, zinc, glycine, etc. So if you're underfueling protein or your diet is thin on those key nutrients, the repair process slows down or stalls, especially if you're a master's athlete again. So you're creating damage faster than you're fixing it. And over time, that's where persistent soreness, recurring injuries, and that feeling of never quite bouncing back come from. Now, the second thing that has to happen is inflammation has to resolve. So I want to be clear about something here because this gets misunderstood constantly. Inflammation is not the enemy. It's a required part of adaptation. So when you train hard, your body mounts an inflammatory response, and that response is what signals tissues to repair themselves and strengthen. So the problem, again, isn't the inflammation. The problem is when it doesn't turn off when it should. Now, chronically elevated inflammation, driven by poor sleep, high stress, inadequate recovery between sessions, shifts your body from a state of adaptation into a state of perpetual breakdown. That's the athlete who feels perpetually sore, stiff, and like something's always a little bit off. The inflammation that was supposed to help them adapt is now working against them. Third, and this is the one that most athletes don't always think about, that is your nervous system has to reset as well. So high intensity, high volume training activates your sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight system, and that's appropriate and necessary during those sessions. But after that exercise bout, your body needs to shift into parasympathetic mode. That's the rest and repair state where recovery actually happens. So if that shift doesn't occur, you stay in a low-grade stress state perpetually. Resting heart rate stays slightly elevated, sleep quality drops, and the downstream effects of recovery are significant. So I see this pattern constantly in athletes who are training hard and sleeping technically enough hours, but waking up feeling like they didn't sleep at all. Their body never fully downshifted. It spent the night in a state that actually wasn't restorative. Now, fourth, your energy systems have to be replenished, right? So glycogen, electrolytes, the mitochondrial substrates your cells need to produce ATP, these all get depleted during the training process and have to be restored before the next session. So if they're not, you start the session already behind. Do that repeatedly and fatigue compounds, performance declines, and injury risk climbs. It's not complicated, but it's very easy to underestimate how significant that gap can become over time. Now, here's what I think is probably the most important takeaway from all of this. Most of the athletes I work with are training hard enough to create real adaptation. The stimulus is there. The problem is that the recovery side of the equation isn't keeping up. So the adaptation they're working toward never fully materializes. They're doing the hard part. They're just not capturing the benefit of it all. So what do you actually do about it? Start with a foundation, right? You need protein in the range of 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Or if you prefer pounds, 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. Carbohydrates that actually match your training load, not chronically restricted. Consistent hydration and electrolyte replacement, not just during your workouts. And sleep that's genuinely prioritized, because that's when the majority of tissue repair and hormonal recovery occurs. Not just adequate sleep, but really good quality sleep. So from there, targeted support. Collagen with vitamin C before training to support connective tissue repair. Omega-3 fatty acids to help regulate the inflammatory response. Magnesium for nervous system recovery and sleep quality. And adaptogens, which I'll cover in detail in a later video, to help regulate the stress response when that system is running too hot. And then when the basics are solid and recovery still isn't where it should be, you need to get some lab testing done, because there are specific physiological issues that can quietly limit recovery regardless of what else you're doing right. Cortisol patterns that are disrupting the recovery cycle, low testosterone or DHEA impacting tissue repair, micronutrient deficiencies, and of course, gut dysfunction, which is genuinely common in endurance athletes and directly affects nutrient absorption and inflammation regulation. Now, these things don't really just show up unless you go looking for them specifically. But when you find them and address them, the change in recovery can be very significant. So in the next video, we're going to get specific about recovery supplements, what the evidence actually supports, what actually works, and how to use it strategically. This isn't just a generic list. The actual physiology behind each one and where it fits in the recovery picture for masters athletes. So if this was useful, hit the like and subscribe. I put out science-backed content on training, recovery, and performance regularly. And if you want individualized testing and a protocol built around your specific physiology, visit naturalathleteclinic.com. I'm Dr. Jason Barker. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.